On a moonlit night, his army moves across the desert toward Gaza, arriving near the battleground at 3 in the morning on October 31st. A few hours later, the British strike simultaneously at Gaza and Beersheba. Allenby's plan is simple: attack Gaza and hold the enemy's attention, then send in a larger force to attack Beersheba on the Turkish left flank, take the city, then concentrate everything against Gaza. The battles rage the entire day, but the main event at Beersheba is the famous cavalry charge of the 4th Australian Light Horse Regiment, depicted in the 1987 film, The Light Horseman.
The long lines of cavalry swept forward at racing speed, half obscured in clouds of reddish dust. Over the Turks they went, leaping the 2 lines of deep trenches, and flung themselves into the trenches with the bayonet.
The Turkish line is broken and the enemy retreats to the north. The loss of Beersheba in a single day stuns the Turkish army. The next day, Allenby's troops hit the Turks hard at Gaza. Incredibly, most of the enemy still holds, and the Turks even make some counterattacks. But they cannot hold out against far superior forces. After holding solid for 9 months, the great Turkish line of defense has been destroyed. The third battle for Gaza is the beginning of the end for the Ottoman Empire. The Turkish armies are in retreat and General Allenby is in hot pursuit. He wants to destroy as much of the enemy as he can while he has the upper hand. He knows there is plenty of fight left in the Turks. They may be retreating, but they are not giving up. Instead of continuing his drive to the north, Allenby turns to the east, toward the holy city of Jerusalem. The symbolic history of that ancient city, sacred to Christians, Muslims, and Jews, is more important at the moment than another great victory against the Turks. Lloyd George has already told Allenby to take Jerusalem before Christmas. The religious significance is not lost on Christians among the British troops.
Ford's Tin Lizzies ploughed through the sandhills and raced along the coast tracks where Pharaoh's war chariots had travelled. A derelict tank lay in no man's land, within rifle shot of where Samson's primitive weapon of the jawbone of an ass had proved more deadly.
Well, in some respects it was a crusade. But Allenby is really sensitive about this because he doesn't want it to be called a crusade. A lot of his soldiers were Muslim. I mean, his labor force, for example. He also had Indian troops. And so he doesn't want this sort of Christian versus Muslim conflict. And he just doesn't want to call that at all. But you couldn't help but be aware, if you were a British soldier, that you were going into Bethlehem or that you were getting closer to Jerusalem. And so even though Allenby doesn't want it really talked about as a crusade, some of the rank and file did think that way. And I think it was some motivation for some of these British soldiers.
On a night of rain and bitter cold, British forces attacked the holy city of Jerusalem on December 7th, 1917. The enemy offers strong resistance at first, but they are only 15,000 men against overwhelming enemy numbers. They begin to withdraw from the city. 4 centuries of Ottoman rule have come to an end. On December 11th, General Allenby enters Jerusalem on foot out of respect for the city. He is the 34th conqueror of Jerusalem in its long, volatile past. After a campaign that has lasted 40 days and 40 nights, with the loss of 18,000 men, the British soldiers have delivered a Christmas present to their nation. In the city, Allenby delivers a proclamation to the crowd and dignitaries gathered.
Since your city is regarded with affection by the adherents of 3 of the great religions of mankind, and its soil has become consecrated by the prayers and pilgrimages of multitudes of devout people of those 3 religions for many centuries, Therefore do I make it known to you that every sacred building, monument, holy spot, shrine, or customary place of prayer, of whatsoever form of the three religions, will be maintained and protected according to the existing customs and beliefs of those to whose faiths they are sacred.
The Turks lose 25,000 men in the struggle that began October 31st. They are down but not out, and still hold a strong